Specflow tutorial part 10 feature context. In part 9 we have learned about a context injection. So in this session we are going to learn about what is a feature context and its utilization. So let me start this session. Feature context helps to get the information of the feature. So whenever you are executing your test cases at one point of time, you need the information of the feature as well. So if you talk about the information, the title is the information, the tags which we declare it at the feature level, so those are also available. You can say those you can access it with the help of this feature context. Feature context is nothing but a class. So when we are saying whenever you want to access the information, the methods and the properties, those are available in the feature context class. Then one, you need to create the object. So instead of creating the object with the help of the new keyword, whenever you want to use a feature context, then the Specflow provides a concept of a context injection. So this context injection concept is working with the feature context. It means you don't need to create the object of the feature context class. With the help of the new keyword, automatically the context injection is going to create the object of the feature context class, and it is going to add it in the classes, in the methods. Those are available in the classes as well. So feature context can be accessed during the feature execution, and we can access this feature context object, or you can say this feature context object will be available in these hooks: before feature, after feature, before scenario, after scenario, before step, and the after step. So what you need to do is you need to add the feature context as a parameter, as an argument of these different hooks which we have mentioned it here. Feature context helps you to store the values in a dictionary. So when you are saying you want to save some values in a key value pair, then we can use the feature context class, and this feature context class help us to save the values, and those value will be available among the scenarios. Suppose you have 10 scenarios and you save the value in the first scenario, and you are trying to access that particular value which you have saved it in the first scenario, and you are trying to access it in the 10th scenario, then you can access it. So feature context help you to store the value in the dictionary between the scenario. So this help you to organize your step definitions better than using a private variables in a step definitions class. So we have a feature info class, and it helps to get the information related to a feature. So let me flip to Visual Studio to understand with an example. We have this Specflow session project, and this Specflow session project we have created in the previous session. So if we see, we have a web steps as well. So as per the definition of the feature context, you can access the feature context in the constructor of the class as a context injection. So whenever you are going to use a feature context, you can use the feature context in the constructor of the class. What the Specflow is going to do is it is going to create the object of the feature context, and then it is going to add it here inside the constructor of the class. So take an example of, we have this web steps, and inside this web step we have the constructor, which is this web step. So now if we want to access the feature context, what we need to do is we need to provide a feature context. This feature context is a class, and this feature context is present inside a TechTalk Specflow namespace. So let's use the feature context and provide the name of the feature context as well. So when we commit here, we are saying console.writeLine, we are saying fc dot, and here are the different methods and a property, and one is a feature info. So let's use this feature info dot, and we can see we have a different methods. One is a title, it is going to provide the title of the feature, it is having a description, and it is having the information related to a different tag. So tags are present at the feature level. So when we commit here in the login.feature file, let's take an example of whatever the tags which are presented here at the feature level, those you can access it here with the help of this tag property which is existed inside a feature info. We can get the feature context object in the constructor of the class, as well as we can get the feature context in the before feature, after feature, before scenario, after scenario, before step, and the after step. So let's do one thing. Let's have one method. This time it is going to be the before feature, and we are going to have the feature context. Let's have the feature context, and then we can have the fc. And so whenever you want to mark this particular method as a hook, Then we need to provide a hook here, which is this a before feature. So now if we commit here, we are saying console.writeLine, and inside the write line we are saying fc dot. Here is a feature info, and we can get the description as well. So with the help of this context injection, we can achieve it inside a different hooks. Those are available with the help of the Specflow. Another important part, you cannot get this feature context in a before test run and a after test run, because the feature context object will be created whenever we are going to execute the feature file, but the before test run hook invoked before invoking any of the feature file. So that was the reason behind it. We cannot get this feature context as an object inside a before test run as well. So now what we guys can do is we can invoke this, but before invoking, what we need to do is we need to mark this particular method, which is this before feature, as a static, because as per the syntax of the Specflow, whenever you are declaring any method with the tag which is this before feature, you need to mark that particular method as a static. So now let's commit here in the build. Let's have a build here, build successful. Let's go to test, we can say test explorer, select this, but before selecting it, let's have a debug point here. We can have a debug point here, as well as we can have a debug point here inside a before feature. Commit here, say debug. Control has reached it here. Here we can see it has reached it to the before feature. So when we hover a mouse, we can see we have the information. We can see we have the object of this particular feature context. We are not creating the object of the feature context class with the help of the new keyword, but we are using, or you can say Specflow provides the concept of a context injection. So let's hover a mouse. We are getting the description of that particular feature file. So now if we say continue, control has come it here, and again we are getting this feature object, which is this feature context, and then we hover a mouse on the tags, we are getting the tags related to a feature info, which is this a tag too. So now let's go and click on continue. So we can get the feature context with the help of the context injection in the constructor of the class, as well as in the different hooks. Those are available with the Specflow. Another important part, whenever you are mentioning or whenever you are using a feature context, whenever and wherever you are going to use it, you need to mark that particular class as a keyword, which is this a binding keyword. Take an example, if you want to use it here inside this event class, then you can also use that particular feature context, because this event class has marked with a keyword, which is this a binding keyword, and this binding keyword is of a Specflow. So let's click on continue. Another important concept related to a feature context is that feature context helps you to store a value in a dictionary between the scenarios as well. So if you talk about a scenarios, right now we have the feature context, and the feature context object is available to all the scenarios. Those are available in the feature file. So if we have a one scenario, this is a one scenario, and if we save a some value here and you want to access that value in a second scenario, that you can do it with the feature context. You can save the value here in the first scenario and you can access it in the remaining scenarios as well. So let's do one thing. Let's have a here inside this, go to definition, and let's declare this feature context. So whenever you want to use a feature context, we can have at the class level, so that we able to use it underscore fc, we are saying. So now assign this object to this a class level instance of a feature context. So we are saying fc is equal to fc as well. So now we have the reference of this object, which is committed as a context here inside this instance variable. Now let's commit here, and when we have this user adds the first name and the last name, so what we guys can do is we can use a fc, and whenever you want to save the values, you can save it with a key. So here we need to provide the key. So let's have a, can say employee full name, and we can save the value. Here is the employee full name, Jack. Okay, now we can access this value in the another scenarios as well, because this particular statement existed inside this particular scenario, which is this then user adds a first name and the last name. So we can have a scenario here, we can use this particular scenario. So let's commit here, we are saying instead of having a valid credentials, we can provide a different name to make it a unique name. And then instead of having all these information, we are saying given display employee full name. Now we are going to add the step definition of this step. Right click, save define steps, copy to a clipboard, and we can go it here in the event class. Let's have a paste. So what we are going to do is we are going to access this particular key which we have added it, which is this employee's full name. So this employee full name we have added in the feature context. Commit here, and here we can have a feature context, and we are saying FC again. You can give any other name as well. So here is a feature context, and this is the feature context. Now we are going to assign the value, which is this feature context is equal to FC. Now we are going to access this feature context, and here is a console.writeLine, and here we are saying a feature context and what is the name of that particular key which we have added in the previous scenario. The key name is employee full name. Let's commit here, and here it is. So let's have a debug point here. Let's get rid of this debug point, and when we commit here, let's have a build to get a second scenario as well. We have the two scenarios. Select both the scenarios and say debug. Control has reached it here, so let's uncomment this and click on continue. It has opened this particular browser for us, and it has logged in inside a website as well. It has closed it. Now the control has reached it here. So if we check the value of this particular employee name, select this and say add watch. Right now we are getting the full name, which is the Jack. Okay, so this particular step existed here inside a second scenario. And if we talk about a Jack, which is the full name, so this employee full name, we have added it in the previous scenario as well. So with the help of the feature context, you can save the value of the variable and you can access it in the remaining scenarios as well. So feature context helps you to store a value in a dictionary between the scenarios. So this helps you to organize your step definitions better than using a private variables in the step definitions class. So feature info class helps to get the information related to a feature. So that's it in this session.